We're gonna talk about these new stuff we get every other week, okay?
I love it.
I just keep it clean.
I love it. I love it. Well, good evening, everyone. And as you can see, we are about 1 minute earlier than what we normally do to sign on, but we are so excited. We could not wait any longer. I am happy to invite you to our new episode of, and I got to say the new name, y'all. It's Lean In with CWJ. We are so excited for this official. So somebody write this date down so that we can celebrate our anniversary show next year. We're going to do it big. I think we should go to Vegas to celebrate the anniversary. We should be out in Vegas, baby, where everything happens. So we are just ecstatic to be here with you. We are launching our new podcast. It's called Lean In with CWJ podcast. And this is where we are going to have some real conversations so that we can do some real healing. We're all out here, people are hurting, and we want to make sure that we're doing our part to support real healing. And so tonight, we are going to focus on fractured roots, the cost of unhealed family trauma. And we're going to be diving deep into some unaddressed issues, some pain and trauma from our families that have been hidden. You know, family history sometimes can be a little tricky. And we know that when we're not dealing with trauma appropriately, it can and does cause fractures in our family relationships, in our identities, and even causes generational, what we in the church know as generational curses. So before we go any further, we're asking you to reach out to your family, friends, and loved ones and let them know that we are here. Lean in, lean in with
Come on in.
CWJ. So I'm going to, and oh, I didn't introduce us. I'm so sorry. I'm Dr. Marcia Cradle. We have Pastor Kennard Weaver and Coach Lima. So we are your host of Lean In. Go ahead, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell people at the grocery store if you're still there. Let them know that we are here and we are going to help with addressing some of the pain and trauma from our family histories. Coach Lima.
Oh, so I'm going to get this. We're going to go right into this, right?
Yes, we're going to jump
Okay.
right in.
Okay. Because this is such a complex and heavy subject, but I think we all, know or believe, like typically the belief around family is that family is supposed to be a safe haven, right? It's supposed to be a place of peace and comfort and emotional support. And, I saw a post to tie it all in not too long ago, and it said, a child's first enemy is an unhealed parent.
Ooh.
And I was like,
Say that again. Say that again. Say that again.
a child's first enemy is an unhealed parent. And that was like super duper heavy, because I believe that to be true. So when we're talking about family trauma, basically what we're talking about are like distressing experiences that significantly affect one or more members of a family, right? And then these experiences, like Dr. Cradle said, goes from generation to generation. You call them generational curses, generational patterns or habits, intergenerational patterns, but they have this way of moving from generation to generation. And the thing about these wounds is they're not always visible to the naked eye, right?
Yeah.
Most of these wounds are emotional. And these wounds can linger a lifetime, right? So they don't always show up in the form of a bruise or a cut, but they do manifest in the way that we think,
Mm-hmm.
in the way that we relate to others, and in the way that we see ourselves. And so oftentimes, when you see people and we have this ability to cover it up, when we look nice and our appearance is well kept and we take pride
Mm-hmm.
in our outward appearance, we're able to hide behind that, but it's there.
Stevie, you said something really interesting, right? Because we have been raised and trained to always take pride in your appearance, always make sure that you are dressed to impress, make sure that you are always presentable. Okay? But even in my being presentable, even in my professional stance and my dress to impress, you say it can be a covering for something deeper?
Yes.
Mm.
Wow.
Ooh.
Yes.
We now
Even
process that.
no, and here's another thing that's so deep. The effects of when we have these wounds from a child, and these wounds could be, they could be abuse, it could be neglect, right? It could be where emotions aren't honored, how you feel. There's so many things that happen that can cause this level of trauma, but the result of it, as we get older, is perfectionism,
Mm.
right? People
Mm,
pleasing,
wow. Wow.
depression, anxiety, those get talked about more often than say the perfectionism. But perfectionism can be a form of like a mental health issue. It absolutely can. And
Mm.
so this is the result of this unresolved trauma that we oftentimes grow up with. We talked about on the last episode or the first, we talked about when people say what goes on in this house stays in this house,
Mm-hmm.
that that breeds a level of trauma in the sense where it teaches shut down, don't talk, right?
Secrecy.
Secrecy,
Cover-ups.
shame.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So hide how you feel. Don't talk about what you feel. Don't, what goes on in here stays in here. So, and when people have to say that, oftentimes there's some high drama going on. It's not,
Mm-hmm.
if there was healthy love and healthy relationship, that's not something that would be said. What goes on in this house stays in this house. It's almost like, how people say what goes on in Vegas stays in Vegas. That's when
Mm-hmm.
the devil's involved. That's people that say that because Satan's involved in what they do. You know?
Wow. I hope y'all are leaning into this conversation because that put a different twist on things, guys. Because you always taught to be presentable, always be
Mm-hmm.
professional, be the strong person. But
Mm-hmm.
that is a form of camouflaging
That's what
trauma
someone
and
in the comments just said. They said masking.
yes, yes,
And we're,
right,
oftentimes people are taught that skill. I don't know if I don't think they come right out and say it, but you're taught that skill
right.
early on.
That's
Fix your
interesting.
face.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Wow.
So then but then these trauma don't stay, they're not trauma that, and it sounds like a dirty word, right? Because when people hear a trauma, they think of, oh, this big spooky thing. But as you just talked about, sometimes it can be very subtle. It's
Mm-hmm.
not these big booms. And they don't stay hidden.
Mm.
They cause some division and they cause some fractures in family, right? Uh, that's why times of the year like family reunions are inviting for some and it's fearful for others
Mm-hmm.
because they no
That's
telling what
true.
Uncle Bobby is going to say when we get together, right?
Yeah.
You have siblings who grow up um, resenting one another from family trauma that
Mm-hmm.
mask itself in this thing that we have this unfailing love for one another. Right? But secretly, we're judging one another. We're having these secret conversations about one another
Mm-hmm.
because we know mom and dad have the favorite. We know who's the
Mm.
one that we didn't expect to be the one that was going to make it. So can we talk a little bit about that, a little bit about the scapegoat of the family or the golden child of the family or who was
Or the
expected to be
black
the
sheep.
peacemaker, the black sheep of the family, right?
Yes.
Um, the roles that we played that serve family well, but they got us caught up and trapped up.
Mm.
And now we are adults in our own developing families, and we are still behaving like the child who was raised in the home where we were told to put on your Sunday best, even if you didn't feel your best.
Mm-hmm.
So oftentimes what happens in families is that there is this lack of uh, unconditional love. So here's what I mean. When the love is conditional, is you get mom or dads or whoever the caretaker is, you get their attention when you're doing great and you're doing things that are pleasing to them. So
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes that particular child, oftentimes becomes a favorite because you do have some that will conform to that. You know, if I do great, if I'm at my best all the time, and this is how I'm going to get this exchange of love and attention. But then you have some that will rebel against
Mm-hmm.
that. So the one, in this scenario, the one that doesn't rebel is the one that becomes the favorite, becomes the golden child, if you will, because you're doing what I expect as a parent, what I'm expecting of you. You're doing. And so sometimes that love it becomes conditional, and you only get love and you only get praise or affirming when you're doing good. But what happens when you're not? So you don't get that exchange when you're not. And so then that's a hit to someone's self-worth. We talked a lot about pressure and how these kids are, the pressure to perform, that's where a lot of that comes from, the pressure to perform. Because if this is how my self-worth is esteemed or validated by me
Mm-hmm.
doing good so that I can get this praise, what happens when I don't?
Right.
I'm leaning into that a little bit. I love the fact that you use the analogy between the two um, kids in the house, right? The ones who rebel against the whatever the established rules of the family is, and the one who leans in to whatever the established rules of the family is, right? Because sometimes you witness these family disagreements and these family arguments or squabbling, whatever you want to call it, and something in you is saying what they're arguing about is not even what they're arguing about. That's not even what the argument really is. They're dealing with the surface stuff. But isn't it funny that the one that rebel and the one that confirm, both of them have the same plan, and it always goes something like this: I can't wait till I turn 18.
So I can get out of here.
They both have the same. I can't wait till I get out of here. I can't wait till I get my own place or my own life, right? So one is confirming until let me stay with the pressure until I can do something about it. And the other
Mm-hmm.
one is saying the pressure is stifling. So they're both saying the same thing. How is it that as the family members or the parents or the adults, so to speak, how is it that we're hearing different things?
I believe people hear what they want to hear. So they hear that, oh, like you said, when both children are saying, I can't wait until I'm 18, they're hearing, oh, they want to achieve great things so they can move on, not that they want to move on because of hurt. They're hearing, oh, it's going back to this achievement thing. That's what I believe.
Wow.
And I want to add to something Dr. Credo was saying. I agree with that. But then I also believe too that you can have two, three, four, five children grow up in the same house with the same parents, and they're all different. They're
Hmm.
all different in how they think, how they perceive, how they experience, how they hear, and so an expectation in what one child is perhaps capable of doing, the other one may not. So it is as hard as it may be, it can't always be this blanket approach to parenting when you have more than one child, because we're all different. So then you run into that where, this child's way of being versus this child's way of being is just different because they're different.
Right. Right. That's,
And
this brings us back
it's
to
so
our,
funny you said that because I know in my family, with things that worked for me did not work for my younger brother. And I, same parents, same household. I mean, my mom could look at me to make me do something she wanted me to do. She could look at my brother, and as he was doing what she didn't want him to do, he's still looking at her. So the looks didn't work for her,
Mhm.
for him, And so I do think, and I'm just speaking from my past experience. I think as parents, we do have to recognize that children are different. They don't all come out, and like I always tell people, that children don't come out of the box with instructions to tell you exactly what to do this and this. So you have to address each each child as a different child. That's just a Marciaism, but yeah.
this is important, right? And dealing with our topic tonight, fractured roots and the cost of unhealed family trauma, right?
Mhm.
Because we have a lot of people who are in professionals. They're working good jobs. They're fathers currently. They're mothers. They are somebody's boss. They're showing up. They're somebody's employee, and we're showing up with these unhealed family trauma, and we're trying now to live adult lives. And then we show up in places, and all of a sudden now, it's the boss on the job don't like me because the boss on the job remind me of that unaccepting parent I dealt with when I was a child, right? Or the
Mhm.
coworkers that I can't get along with because they remind me of the squabbling that I had with my siblings, right?
Mhm.
Or this unhealthy attachment that we make to people in our professional lives because we assume, well, my siblings and I have always been close and we have these healthy relationships. So everybody that I'm in their circle, we're supposed to be close. And then when people have to transition in life, we take it personal because we've never had to deal with that type of a separation, those different things. So if I'm going back to this thing that Coach Lima brought up about this well-dressed persona that look like professionalism, right?
Mhm.
This well-established relationship within the family, right? Siblings that are real close that look like, oh, they must really love each other. Look how close they are. What are those hidden trauma indicators?
Mhm. Mhm.
Here's why I want to say this, because I don't want somebody to, because I don't want this to get taken out of context. There's nothing wrong with taking pride in your appearance. That's,
Oh, please,
there's
please take
nothing
pride in
wrong
it.
with caring how you look and being well dressed and well groomed. But that's not an indicator that someone is doing just fine, or someone's
Mhm.
life is perfect, or someone is, doesn't have issues, or someone that has it all together. That's not an indicator for that. Even the women that I coach are high achieving women, business owners. But the area with which they struggle is when it's time to do shadow work, which is dealing with these childhood traumas, dealing with this stuff that lurks in the shadows of our lives, that's silent, but that's we're not dealing with what's dealing with us. Um, and when we get out, when we break away from the family, because oftentimes in this family dynamic,
Mhm.
we don't know or have autonomy. We just know oftentimes who we're told to be, how the family dynamic operates. Oftentimes in the family, think about this, there aren't any boundaries. right? Everybody's just crashing into each other. Well, we family. Well, I can say what I want to say to you because you're my sister or you're my brother. And then when you get out into the world, it doesn't work that way. And
Right.
we go out and we think that we can relate the way that we related to our families, that we get out in the world and we can relate in a professional environment with our friends. We don't have
Mhm.
boundaries. We're
Mhm.
not thoughtful. We're thinking that this space can walk us into the world. And it causes damages to our relationships. We can't hold on. We can't relate to people. We don't engage properly, respectfully. And so that's how it just kind of permeates every area of our lives when these things go unchecked.
We have some really good comments. I want to share them with you. One of them says, sometimes we mask those traumas as, quote, this is just who I am, while not dealing with the healing process. And then someone else said, many kids can't get beyond the abuse or battery placed upon them. You seek to assist in them being able to manage those situations. And then another one is not addressing the trauma, is choosing to be delusional versus delivered.
Yeah.
What do you think?
There's a quote that we have in our show tonight that says, let me make sure I'm reading it. So, you are not responsible for what broke you, but you're responsible for your healing.
Mhm.
Right? And so these family things are excruciating. They can be crushing, and
Mhm.
then we have to take the time to not just acknowledge it, but we also have to take the time to address it.
Yes.
We have to
Yes.
go back and address those things. I know for me, as we are coming up on our last 5 minutes or so, for me lately, I have been doing my own self scan because as a father, I've always been trying to be a father to my children
Mhm.
better than the father that was to me. But then lately, I've been going through this thing. My father died when I was 12. My mother never remarried. She never brought another man into our home. So when I got to my place of conceptualization, I didn't understand what fatherhood is all about. So now I'm
Mhm.
trying to father my children from a place of something that wasn't even modeled for me. Right? And so my trauma in that is, my dad died. I never got a chance to go say my final goodbye and
Mhm.
rites to my father. And I found myself lately that is weighing on me.
Mhm.
Right? So I need to figure out a way to address that and bring closure to that and those different things. I've been talking to my therapist about that the past few weeks, um, and identifying those because I don't want to have to pass that on as a lineage to my son or to my daughters or any of those different things. So these fractured roots, the cost of unhealed family trauma, and it doesn't have to be bad. It's not
Yeah.
necessarily bad for us to just sit with the family and say, we really need to talk about such and such and such. Right? Um, I'm excited about the future of Lean In.
We have another comment, and it says, dealing with trauma includes personal intimacy. And then they put in parentheses, in to me. See? So, you know, we have to deal with self, and that's, I think, what you were addressing, Pastor Weaver, being able to deal with yourself. And then you also said something else that we have to do, and that you have to name what happened.
Yeah,
You have, we have to
call it
name
what
it, because
call it
we
what it
can't.
is.
Yeah, and because we can't heal what we don't acknowledge.
Correct, correct. Call it what it is.
Can
Yeah.
I want to share this really quick, in terms of how this family trauma thing and dealing with it. When babies are born, if you will, we're born with clean slates, right?
Hmm.
So I'm not talking
Hmm.
about spiritual legacy. I'm just talking about physically, a baby just comes into this world with zero experience. And what happens as, this child grows up, we grow up within the family, and then you have these family dynamics that cause a level of harm or trauma. What ends up happening is there's a separation from self that happens, right?
Mm,
It's separated from ourself with each heartbreak, with neglect, with abuse, with whatever it is.
mhm.
It's a separation that happens. And so as now this in that separation is where all these limiting beliefs are birthed. How we
Yeah.
see ourselves, the lack of understanding our self-worth and things. But we're talking about dealing with trauma. I don't want to convey a messaging, and not that that's what we're doing, but for anybody that has to look at themselves or coming back to yourself is a painful process. It's
Mm.
painful. That's just the reality of it. There is pain associated with healing and coming back, returning to self. But it's in the end, it's worth it when you can get to the other side of it, or when you return back to who God created you to be.
Mhm.
It's worth it. But it is a process, and it's not something that we can just sneeze at and say that it's an easy journey, because it's not.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do
I'm
want
a
to add
practical.
that with regard to healing, is that when you're healing, it doesn't mean that you have to reconcile with everyone. It's really about reclaiming your peace, like Coach Lima said, getting back to self and no longer letting your past dictate who you are now. So we have to keep that in mind as we are healing. And
That sounds like another show, huh? Just we don't have to reconcile. We don't have to be enemies. We don't have to reconcile. But I love the analogy that Coach Kim used. So if I'm a practical person. So as a child, as a baby is born, we're born without baggage and luggage and everything, right? I'm in my pure form. But as I go through life and enough stuff happens to me, it gets me further and further away. And then I start to spend my adult life trying to get back to who I was as that baby. That means whatever those things are, those painful things that got me
Mhm.
separated from who I was as a child, I have to travel those roads again if I'm trying to get back to being a baby.
Right.
You're gonna have to do that's another show. That's that's
So
pain
we do
twice.
have we do have some suggestions for tools for healing. One, therapy, coaching, counseling. That's three, but those
Yeah,
things. Spiritual guidance and faith-based healing. Honest conversations, honest conversations, journaling and self-reflection. All of
uh,
those things can help you as you travel your road to healing.
absolutely,
Can I add to
absolutely.
that?
Sure.
Another thing that can help you just in a moment, is when you find yourself in angst or getting away from yourself, just stop and take some deep breaths. And that's how you connect back with yourself. A deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. That's a tool you can use on the fly all the
Yep.
time, and it will not fail you.
Yep. Thank you for adding that.
Good job.
Pastor
Good
Weaver,
job,
if we could
ladies.
get you to close us out today.
Good job with our first lean in with CWJ. We absolutely want this to be an opportunity and a place where we can have some real conversations that leads to real healing. And I think Coach Lima summed it up really, really well when she gave that analogy of trying to get back to the innocence in which we were born into. Good God Almighty, that's going to be my thing for this week, right? Making our way back there. We want to give a moment or two for any announcements, anything that we have going on in our lives as hosts. I am going to be traveling this week back to the place, not my place of birth, but the place where I was raised, and a lot of things took place to receive an award from my undergraduate alma mater. But I'm also very mindful that it's a place that is a reminder of a lot of trauma for me. I'm very mindful of that. But I'll be traveling back there this week, and then I'll be on location for our show next week. A friend of mine there is celebrating his 24th pastoral anniversary, so I get the
Awesome.
opportunity to preach for him on Sunday. So I'll be doing our show on location in New Jersey next week.
Yes, Pastor didn't tell you, but he received the Alumni Achievement Award for in professional achievement. So he's big time. Y'all get his autograph the next time you see him, okay? Get his
I'm
autograph.
gonna get I'm gonna get me some people so your people can call my now.
Did you
um,
have any announcements, Coach Lima?
No, I don't, not in the moment. I mentioned my retreat. I'm still working on that. That's not until next year. So I'll
But go ahead
periodically
and tell people so they can, because I'm coming to
get
Vegas.
ready.
I'm
Okay.
coming to Vegas.
So it's going to be it's the Heart of the Matter retreat. It is May 14th through May 17th of 2026. And this retreat is going to be exclusive to 8 women. It's going to be intimate. There's going to be private chef. There's going to be some goodies. There's going to be pampering for women because we do
You
so
say
much.
how many women?
It's going to be 8 women.
Y'all,
8.
she's telling you
she
now.
got spot for 7 now, right? Because you
7.
just claim one.
I'm telling you, I don't know what the other 7 gonna do. But so now it's down to 7. Go ahead and get
Okay.
yourself, as the kids say, get your life. Okay. And my conference I'd like to announce is coming up in March, March 6th through the 8th here in Metro Atlanta. I'm not limited to 8 women, but I'm limited to 100.
Hey.
Y'all, can we do that? I think we can do that. And then
Yes.
also, I think Mr. Cradle is on, but I am excited to announce, after much encouragement and coaching from Pastor Weaver, we are going to have a session that's dedicated just to men,
Thank you,
just to
Jesus.
men.
Wow.
And Mr. Cradle will be leading that session.
Yes.
So,
Good job.
y'all, he keeps it real to the point where sometimes I just have to, but anyway, be ready, get ready, get ready, get ready for the 8th annual Sister Circle Summit, March 6th through the 8th here in Metro Atlanta. Registration will start soon, and we look forward to seeing you all here.
Thank you all for joining us on tonight. We look forward to being with you on next week, and we hope that you will take time out this week to lean into your healing. Have a great
Thank you
night.
all.
Hey.